Alright everyone, the big news of the day comes from over in South Asia with India and Pakistan. The situation there has grown rather dire. It's been basically a slow-rolling disaster there diplomatically for about the last 2 weeks. What happened is that India, I guess, got word that there was an alleged Islamic training camp for terrorists. There's a group called JEM over there that operates across the border in Pakistan in an area that they both, by the way, claim. Both countries claim it. I believe China claims part of this region too. It's a very, very difficult situation when you've got one of these border crises. It's like India cleared up its border with Bangladesh finally, I think last year. They finalized that because you had an even more wonky border, but this one's more difficult because all three nations are nuclear powers, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to get anyone to budge, I think. Well, what happened? India sent its air force out. Well, what happened first is that there was a terrorist attack in India, in the Kashmir province. It killed like 40, 50 people. India necessarily was mad. They located, I guess, the training camp that these individuals had come from that conducted the car bombing. They went and wiped out the training camp, possibly killing the large numbers of people with heavy explosives dropped by their air force. Pakistan, of course, because it operates in the area, it claims the area, it's like, no, you can't do that. And then general sparring broke out. Over the last few days, you've had soldiers from both sides, name-calling one another, shooting across the border randomly. Some people have died. A drone got knocked down. At least one Pakistani and one Indian plane, both have been shot down. Pakistan has detained at least one Indian pilot is holding him. Originally they claimed two, it turned out it was just one. Now I think yesterday one of India's wing commanders actually blew his head off in his offices, unconnected possibly with this whole event. By the way, this is against a backdrop of the Hanoi summit coming up very quickly. A worsening situation there could make it too hazardous, I would think, for Kim Jong-un or Trump to even be anywhere near the area. What if a nuclear war breaks out? Now, keep in mind, some people look at it, well, it's doomsday, the nuke war is coming, we're all going to die, nuclear winter, nuclear holocaust. That's not going to happen. If you look at the total yield in megatons of Pakistan and India's arsenals, and it would be distributed over a wider area, let's face it, it's less impressive, certainly, than maybe the Russian or U.S. arsenals, or the Chinese arsenal. I think it's smaller than France's as well. I believe they've both got roughly the same amount of power, and it'd be several Tsar bombers on either side. Now, of course, that means that if they were to get into a full nuclear conflict, let's say all of their nukes are fired, they hit their targets more or less. Pretty much everyone in Pakistan and India would be dead. Pretty much everyone. You'd probably also have tens of millions of immediate and possibly hundreds of millions of future casualties all over Southeast Asia, possibly parts of Central Asia due to radiation exposure. Not many people, I think, in Turkmenistan have fallout shelters, so to speak, or Uzbekistan. I can't remember which one. I think it's Uzbekistan is immediately north of that region. Afghanistan, certainly people in Iran, possibly. People in Australia, as far away as there, might be exposed to high levels. You've got to realize that for the first 2 weeks, that's the real critical period. You got to give people iodine supplementation, usually potassium iodide pills, iodine drops. If you don't have them, you should probably have them. Like a 2-week course per person is all you need to keep the literal worst possible thing from happening, which is you've absorbed enough radioactive iodine so that your thyroid swells up and you get cancer and die. It's an almost sure death. Like the other forms of radioactive isotopes with longer half-lives, there's not much you can do about that. But with iodine, you can flood your system with normal iodine. It's taken up preferentially to radioactive iodine, so all you have to do is take the supplement. You're fine. At least for the 2 weeks you have to stay indoors. Maybe seal up some of the windows, stay in your basement. Not sure how many people have basements in the low-lying areas of India and Pakistan where flooding is notorious and can be very, very swampy. But if you do, yeah, you should probably stock up a little bit of extra beans and rice and other staples. Get a camp stove. Be a boring 2 weeks. Make sure you have a ham radio. You should have a crank-powered battery recharger too, if you can. And what else are you going to do? You're going to sit there and turn the crank. It'll be the only entertainment you have. Bring down your baseball trading cards. I mean, I'm not trying to be like flippant about this because it's, but it's not a likely scenario, thankfully, at this moment. But there is a lot of warfare going on when two different militaries are hostile and at odds over situationally or generationally in some cases. When they're firing at each other, those are acts of war. Pakistan has already declared what India did an act of war. India, meanwhile, says, and it has the backing of the U.S., I believe, on this issue, saying, well, you're harboring these groups, not really doing anything about them. They attacked us. We retaliated in an area that's under dispute anyway. But that's the other problem, is there's no clear line about where India and Pakistan begin and end within the context of the Kashmiri problems. I can remember, I think it was even back during the Clinton years, I think I remember seeing reports on TV, can't remember what year or anything it was, about how these two militaries had been sparring. And there are always sporadic issues anyway. Like someone took a pot shot at a border post, someone got yelled at, they got rocks thrown at them, some soldier got drunk, wandered into the wrong area, got detained for a day. That's fairly common because you have this disputed area. The problem is right now you've got a lot more action than that going on. You already have quite a few casualties in both strikes. You have, sorties being flown. You have active live fire, including probably field guns and things like that on both sides. That's not a good place to be between two nations that have nuclear capabilities. If it were just like, if it were like, Congo and Nigeria are sparring right now over who controls the nations between them, or like Gabon and Cameroon get into it and 10 dudes cross the border and kill somebody. It's like, well, yeah, even if total war breaks out, it can't go nuclear because there's no nuclear weapons in the area. Pakistan and India, of course, unfortunately not the same, and China's urging restraint, and I can understand why, because if they have a nuclear war again, China would probably absorb an enormous amount of radiation. It could kill tens of millions of people very quickly with radioactive iodine causing thyroid cancer, number one, and down the road over the next decade or two could cause 100, 200 million extra people to die. It'd be an economic nightmare trying to take care of all the sick alone. That would be a problem. Their productivity would stall. Tourism, you can bet, would be down. China makes a lot of money off of tourism. They don't want a nuclear war between India and Pakistan. They're still trying to build the string of pearls and stuff like that to trade all around the Indian Ocean. They are part of BRICS with India, although relations there are particularly great. So they probably have more of a vested interest than any other nation in actually trying to calm things down. But the situation is worsening by the hour, with no signs at this moment, particularly, unfortunately, of abating. That's about all. Peace out.